And here are the standings after 8 rounds in the FIDE Candidates Final 2016. Sergey Karyakin, 11 Aronian with 5. Anand and Fabio Caruana, 4.5. Anand Giri with 4. Peter Svidler with 3.5. My buddy from the U.S., Carl Nakamura with 3. And Veselin Topalov with 2.5. Tough tournament for Peter and Carl, I really got to say. And Anand's got to stop drawing if he wants to win this. But here are the standings through round 8. Hi folks, John Cordisco back again. Round 9 of the FIDE Candidates Final, or World Chess Candidates Final, as some call it. This is definitely the game of the day. It's a little bit long, so I'm going to try to do the best I can to get through it all. I'll breeze through the opening, but as white, former world champion Anand. As black, 11 Aronian from Armenia. Let's get to it. It's going to be a Gucko piano. As Yasser Sarawan said in the Today in Chess, the show that's on the St. Louis Chess Club and Scholastic Center YouTube channel. Great show. It's a 400-year-old opening, and they're still playing. That's the beauty about chess. Fine. We'll go through the opening quick here. I'm going to go a little faster than normal. It's a very long game. Knight a3. They're just maneuvering around for a while. Castles. Bishop takes. Rook takes. Knight e3. Knight g4. All I'm going to say about this game is what Garry Kasparov said. There's justice in chess. When you get something you didn't deserve, you get something taken away from you as well. That's all I'm going to say, and you'll see at the end. I'll explain to you what that means. Queen to d2. I was a little surprised that Aronian didn't take knight takes, causing the pawn. Queen to d2, a5, d4, allowing Vishy to break in the center. Rook a8. Interesting though on the rook a8. It's also the computer's move, but I like b6 better, frankly. Rook a8, pawn takes, knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, bishop 3, b3. Definitely want to keep that light squared bishop. You don't want his light squared bishop to be king of the board. Small advantage for white. This is typical Gucko piano stuff. Knight d7, trying to bring the knight back around, maybe to a better square, maybe here. Bishop c2. Rook e8, of course. f3, just to reinforce the e-pawn. b6. Like I said, I'm going a little faster than normal because it's a long game, so if you want to stop the video at any time, feel free. Rook to d1, knight c5, b4, knight d7. They're just maneuvering around now, trying to get their pieces in the best spots here. Queen d4, queen, knight d5. Now these guys are both in the hunt for first place. At minimum, Aronian has to draw. Same with Anand. So I don't think they're playing for a draw, though. It doesn't really look like it. Knight takes, bishop takes, rook a7. Give you an idea, not e takes. After bishop d7, it's a little bit advantage for black. But after bishop takes, rook a7, which is a really strange. It's also the computer's move. Obviously, he wants to move the c-pawn eventually and bring the rook over. b5, put the kibosh on that in a hurry. c4, just begging him to take that bishop so he can take with a pawn and really, really make that c-pawn backwards. Queen e5. Now, I think at this point, 11 Aronian as black is playing okay. But I think in the last 4 or 5 moves, he got a little, I won't call it lazy, but he played a little lackadaisical. And I think Vishy is slowly building up an advantage. Not much of one, but enough where black's going to have to suffer for a little while. Rook a to c1, queen takes, rook takes, king f8. Here come the kings. Same with Vishy, brings his king up. F4. Try to get control over the E5 square. F6. And rook C3. Now look how passive that rook is for black on A7. The idea of him moving it there and moving the C-pawn, that plan is obviously shot now. King D7. Rook H3. Here we go. Rook in open spaces. H6. Rook G3. Rook E7. Now look at this. Look at these rooks. Granted, white's rook on D4 isn't that great, but Fishy's got a small advantage. I think it's much easier to play for white. Rook G6. Bishop finally takes. C-pawn takes. Now, double rook and pawn ending. Oddly enough, there's only 2 pawns missing on the whole board. There's 16 pawns, there's 14 on the board. Rook A8, not much maneuvering for the rooks, but I think Vishy's going to slowly, as you can see, he's... Now this is a classic move here. Computer likes rook to C4. This is vintage Vishy. King G4. Putting Aronian to the test. He's giving up that pawn on purpose on E4 to get his king in. He takes, rook takes, check, king moves. And there, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, is the justice in chess. If you watch today in chess, they analyze this game. And if king had gone to D8, and I'll go through the whole scenario with you, Aronian would have drew. But he goes to C8, just that slip of the king. And I say justice in chess because I know in a previous round when Nakamura touched his king, and I believe he did touch it, and the video showed it. And the arbiter ruled like he did it. Nakamura accepted it, and he knew. But if you could tell Aronian the way he was acting, frankly, I think he acted like an ass, and I'm really surprised because he's a good guy. And this is the justice in chess that Gary Kasparov talked about. That one slip is going to cost him this game. Now you can go back and put the king on D8 and do it, analyzing yourself. Rook moves, king B8. Now I think black is doomed, even though the computer shows a small edge for white. Rook C2, here comes, forcing rook C8. Look at the passiveness. Rook A2, immediately guarding that. Rook D4, he's going to give up. White doesn't mind giving up the D5 pawn. King F5. Rook takes check, king takes. Rook F8 check. Black with a rook, rook takes, king takes, check. King G6. Rook takes. And now an important move. I think almost all of us would play king takes pawn. But no, you can't do that. Pawn has to be pushed first. That way this rook can't come over with check. And this rook is guarding both of these pawns very nicely. White's down a pawn, but this endgame is much easier. Rook to C4, king takes, D5, king H5, D4, and here comes the other pawns. G4, D3, H4, rook D4, rook has to go to G2. And now Aronian makes the computer move. I think almost all of us would have played probably rook takes A4. But according to the computer, that loses to G5. And the pawn continues on and black loses. You can analyze it yourself. Give you an idea. Rook takes A4, G5, rook A1, G6. And that's the end of the game. It's over. So king to C8 is the correct move. G5, King D7. He's going to try to catch it. King G6. Rook takes. And he has to give up that pawn. This is what a great player Vichy is. I think a lot of people would try to push the G pawn and nurse them both down, but that would allow the black king to get in. Vichy gives up the H pawn to get his king in. Now, I don't think that black can draw from here. He might be able to, but I don't think he can. King E8. Rook A3 to guard the pawn. Rook G4 is the computer move. And this is where Aronian, I think, stumbles. He wants to advance his C pawn. So he goes Rook C4. And that's the beginning of the end. King G7. Nice. King D7. Now the king can't get over. Black is doomed. G6. C6. King F6. Pawn takes. G7. Rook comes over. Pawn takes. Rook G1. What's black going to do? Rook D3 check. King E8. Rook E3. Drive the king back. And now Rook E5. Guarding the pawn. What else can he do? He has to take. And rook checks. Losing, of course, the rook. And that's where Aronian resigned. An incredible endgame by Vichy. A lot of subtleties that only he would get. I'll tell you, I mean, I really don't want to see an Anand Carlsen rematch. Nothing against Vichy, because I want some new blood. Vichy's what's known, I'm an American, we call it a big game player. Vichy didn't play that well at Gibraltar. In a few other tournaments he was fair. But this is the candidates. This is a huge deal. He seems to get it together. He has so much experience playing these big tournaments, the candidates. He's played in, 6 world championships? Defended it 5 times? And he's played in the candidates. He won it last year when nobody thought he could. This guy seems to put it together. And I didn't really put down Aronian earlier when I mentioned chess justice. But if you saw the video from World Chess, it's on their YouTube channel. And even without hearing what Aronian was saying, just his body language, you can tell he was just being an ass. You know, the arbiter ruled that Carl touched the king, which he did, which caused Carl to lose the game. It was a tough ending anyway, but poor sport is something different. You could tell by his attitude that he was just pissy. And I'm really surprised too, because Levin is such a good guy and everybody likes him, at least in the chess world. But maybe it's the pressure of being in the candidates. And just that king to c8 instead of d8, according to Maurice Ashley and some of the people that analyzed the games, was basically his doom. It was a very complicated rook and pawn ending, and Vichy played it beautifully. He played right into, like he knew Aronian. I think maybe Vichy knows players individually, and he knows what type of strategy to use that puts him on the edge. Either way, though, Vichy wins, which puts him in a tie for first place after 9 rounds. Amazing, amazing stuff. The old man's not dead yet. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, folks, that's, I think, is the game from round 9, the best game. Look for more games coming up. We'll see if Hikaru can at least save some face, get a couple of wins in, get in the middle of the pack. But anyway, folks, as I always say, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.